Hello, this is Richard Wexler with Caring in America, the podcast for caregivers. So, as I always do, who am I? Why am I doing this? So, if you go back about 18 years, kind of minding my own business in the software industry, married later, two small kids, 11 and 7. All four of our parents alive, and we thought they were doing very well. Then in the summer of '05, the phone starts ringing. We wind up getting 3 phone calls, which turns into 4 phone calls. And all of a sudden, we are now caregivers for all 4 of our parents. We were totally unprepared. I could barely spell the word care. That lasted for 14 years until the last parent passed away at 96 in 2019. So led to the formation of our company, Points of Life, led to educating folks all over the country about this little word called care and trying to make a difference. At the end of 2022, got the idea, let's start a podcast. Obviously, we have done that, and our goal is to reach out to more people. So we have a pretty special guest this afternoon that I'm going to introduce. His name is Aaron Murphy. He owns 2 companies, and they are ADM Architecture and Forever Home. Aaron graduated from the University of Washington in 1996 with a BA in architecture and an emphasis in environmental studies. He has spent 25 years in the field and is a licensed architect in the state of Washington and has been since 2003. Aaron has a background also in real estate investing, and he is an expert in aging in place. Aaron, are you there, sir?
I am here. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Very good. So where are we talking today? Where are you sitting?
I'm sitting in an adorable small town called Paulsbo, Washington, but the nearest city anybody knows is Seattle.
How far out of Seattle is it?
For us, it's about a 30-minute ferry ride and then a 20-minute drive.
Oh, interesting. So you got to go across water.
That'd be the short way from downtown. Otherwise, it's down to Tacoma and across a bridge and back up.
Wow. How's your weather today?
Hanging in there, hoping to hang in there through the end of the week. I've got a senior who's headed off to tennis.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. So as I talked about, the 3 words, aging in place, I think that's probably a good place, no pun intended, to start our conversation. So give me some thoughts on aging in place, sir.
Oh, boy. You mentioned a few things that are worth bringing up again. You actually, in your intro, talked about, I think your last parent passed at 96. I lost my grandfather at 98, but I lost my grandmother a lot earlier than that due to osteoporosis and Alzheimer's. What I noticed while I was at the University of Washington was during that process where she went from 5'9", traveling the world, enjoying playing bridge cards at a master's level, to 5'2" and didn't know Carl's name in a hospital bed in the living room. I wasn't ready at 22 to learn about hygiene or medicine, but I was an architecture student, and I sure as heck noticed that a split-level home in Portland, Oregon sure did not work for her, as her needs had changed in her latter stages of life. So that's where I got started in the theory and the passion behind, wait a minute, we have a housing problem if that didn't work for her. Now, 15 years later, I buy a car off Craigslist, and two 63-year-olds bring me a vehicle to test drive. And I said, "Whose car is this?" They said, "Mom, she's 92, finally gave up the keys." "Oh, where's she live?" "Assisted living place down the road." I said, "Personal question, don't answer if you don't want, but I'm doing a little research. What did that cost you?" And they said $150,000 out of pocket and 10 grand a month.
Wow.
That's when I went, oh, wait, we have a spec house housing gap issue related to this new longevity that we're all enjoying because of technology and medicine. Housing is broken related to that. So therein lies the aging in place story for me.
I totally agree. And as we've talked about prior, I mean, I've talked about this issue all over the country. I've run little small elder care think tanks. And one of those think tanks, we talked about the whole issue of housing quite a bit. I mean, we have approximate numbers, about 109 million people in this country. So roughly about a third of the country that's 50 and older. And I know you know all these numbers, and we're, I think, approximately 10,000 people a day are turning 50. Yeah, and 50 is not that old. And you just brought something up. We're seeing people live into their 90s, into their hundreds. I lost a client 6-7 years ago that was 117. I mean, it's crazy, but that whole issue around that one little word of housing, what you talked about, I tell people there's really three places for care in the home. So an adult child moves in, or maybe mom moves in with the adult child. The question there is the house, like you talked about, ready for something like that. Mom, could be grandparents, could be in-laws, dad moves to a beautiful assisted living, but average cost around the country is about $4,500 a month. In major cities, it's a lot more than that. Or we bring someone in the home and people go, well, that's not that expensive. It is. An average cost is going to be somewhere in the low 30s per hour. And then you can do the math out there when we're talking about 5 hours a day, 10 hours a day, or 24 hours a day. So this whole issue of housing, getting it right and trying to figure out what are we going to do with this population of 109 million people? It's all yours, Aaron.
Well, yeah, and so we're approaching the end of 2023. 2024 actually tips the scales in Europe, more 65-year-olds than under 15-year-olds for the
Wow.
first time in the history of the world. And
Wow.
we're not far behind that. And so I've seen data that we're about to tip the 65 plus versus 18 and under here in the United States. So if 95% of our housing stock is spec built, and the spec builder only cares really when they're building their houses as cheaply as possible so that they can make the most money when they hand over the keys, if 95% of our housing stock is that, and they're building for the first and second time home builder, but now we're going to have more 65-year-olds than 18-year-olds, what do you think that looks like for the next 30 or 40 years? It looks like a problem. And
I would agree.
It starts at, 10 acres of forest and a plat, and you draw 70 lots for homes. Well, the problem with the developer is his job, right? And no fault of his sellable product is parcels, lots to build on. So he makes the most possible. That means they're the smallest that are legally possible. And then someone buys those. That's a builder. But the builder's sellable product is heated square feet. But he was given a postage stamp to work on. So what's his answer? It's vertical. That's how he gets 2,400 square feet on a 5,000 square foot lot. So we have a bunch of two-story homes that don't think anything about how you get from the curb to the front door or the front door to the laundry room or the shower. Now, yes, we're doing a better job of the term primary. It used to be called master, but DEI fixed that. We're not using the word master bedroom anymore. So the primary bedroom on the main floor is a great place to start, but we've taken it a lot further than that, Richard. What we're doing is really calling these longevity plans instead of floor plans.
Very interesting. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, and I've even trademarked the term. We're in the process right now of future flex because we're going to write spec books that go with your go, slow go, and no go phase of life. I have designed roof trusses with a structural engineer that can carry you in the gurney system for a full paraplegic to get from the bed to the shower.
Wow.
Okay. We've framed holes between the floors where there are closets now and it lands in the garage. Guess what? Give up one car in bedroom 4 in that house that's now empty nested, which almost 3/4 of the US has, is a 2,400 square foot house. And bedroom 3 and 4 are collecting dust bunnies and Christmas presents for their grandkids. We can repurpose your space and add another 10 to 15 years of your life at home, which AARP polls, close to 90% of people say that's where I'm going to stay.
And I mean, your point, and I've heard this, I don't know how many thousands or millions of times over the last 18 years that I've been doing this. I'm going to die at home with my boots on. I don't want to go anywhere. And I've been trying to tell people forever, there's no such things as nursing homes. They're actually called skilled nursing. They have a legitimate purpose, but most of the time when someone moves out of the house, and normally it's usually being pulled out of the house, is to an assisted living or memory care. So to your point, most people want to stay at home.
Well, and Richard, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, the continuum of care between independent living on a campus and all the way to memory care and hospice type stuff. They openly admit, as a multi-billion-dollar industry in the U.S., that they only capture 5 to 8% of the population. That stat matches perfectly with what we just said. People want to stay home. Yeah. It's where your pet is, it's where your garden is, it's where your neighbors are, and it's where your memories are. Nobody's in a rush to leave that.
So let's talk about solutions, and let's talk about, and we're here for the caregivers, the person that may be physically caring, keep on using mom, or managing mom's care by doing a lot of other things in addition to physically caring. And then a lot of the times we talk about that percentage that can afford to move to an assisted living, can afford to have someone in the home, but a lot of people in this country can't. Or they're in home situations like you're talking about right now that have multiple stairs, that have stairs coming in the front door, that they can't get into the shower or the bathtub very easily. What can we do?
Yeah, so for that existing stock, I think what we're really talking about, and the hardest part in this whole conversation, Richard, is Psych 101. It's the truth of denial, right? I am not a statistic until I am. So when I get a microphone like you've just given me, what I like to do is talk about relativity, which is the price of if not. Because you were referring to, let's say, here's what I'm going to do. Let's say I ask you to spend $150,000 to remodel your house. Now, the cool part about boomers is they've made the most, inherited the most, earned the most. They have the most generational wealth of anybody we've had in the history of the U.S. Most of them have a decent FICO score or have some equity in the home if they're a homeowner. And so let's do some math. Let's say $150,000 on a home equity line of credit, or we have relationships with people that can help with financing, reverse mortgage. That's what we're doing at Forever Home, is building your thriving in place dream team. But $150,000 at 7% on a HELOC is $750 a month. Recall that I just told you that the slip and fall and break your hip and never come home and your son in Pittsburgh looks up a place on the internet and then comes and gets you and puts you there in Seattle, is going to cost you 10 grand a month.
Correct.
Which one sounds better? Because the slip and the fall and the hospital bill and the rehab and losing all autonomy and independence is not what you want. But it does require a little bit of planning, and you have to plan ahead, because I can put lipstick on a pig today, but I can't actually do a good design, get you a permit and a contractor, and have your solution built while you're in rehab from a broken hip.
Wow. And I love the fact you brought up that horrible word. It's a 4-letter word that I use, and you just used the longer piece of it, plan or planning. And that's one of the hardest things to get people. And as I'm talking to the caregivers out there, folks, don't follow the example. And I've been saying this forever, that my wife and I set, because we did zero planning. But as Aaron is talking about, these are things you want to think about. And maybe mom is aging, and maybe mom is still in the family home or a condo or a townhouse, whatever it may be. And there are these multiple stairs, and maybe she's lived there for quite a long time, and there is equity, and she can get her hands on this money, and she does want to stay in the home for a lot of the reasons that Aaron is talking about, compared to moving somewhere. But that plan or planning word is huge. What other advice would you give, Aaron?
Well, even the move, not only is it emotionally, it can also be financially more than you thought through. The cost of a move can be up to 20% of the cost of the sale of the home when it's all said and done. But we've done additions on Ramblers, even for people that had dementia. You brought up, mom and dad in a townhome. We had a couple, the mom, the grandmother was remarried, and they were both living independently in Gig Harbor, outside of Seattle. But they used the equity from selling the townhouse and did an addition, even though mom had full-blown dementia. We actually worked to kind of create security, flip locks around so that they had their independence in a little 2-bedroom apartment addition. But when you looked at the gate on the deck, or you looked at the door from the hallway to the addition, we actually helped the caregiver with security and peace of mind, while the person on the other side actually felt quite independent and free to go about their business.
That's fantastic, because I don't think a lot of people, including myself, are thinking about these wonderful ideas that you have and you're implementing, where someone probably looks at the home, the townhouse, the condo they're in, and maybe it's the daughter or son looking at it and saying, mom's got to move. This is not going to work in this location. But with thought, with reaching out to experts like yourself, there's opportunity.
Well, yeah, Richard, I've had people, I wrote a book about this in 2013. And it's not a room by room solution book. It's a wake up and take a look book. I've had people call me from Anchorage, Alaska, say they're flying down to Sequim, Washington to meet with their parents and have Christmas dinner. And they said, I'll pay you $500 to come to Christmas dinner and tell my mom what I've been telling her for 15 years.
Wow.
Because the stranger is the expert. Now, Richard, with my parents, I can send you to their house with my script, and you'd be a genius.
And I totally agree. Go ahead.
Oh my God, yeah, I'm the poster child right now for the sandwich generation. I have 4 teenagers. I remarried at about 40. We have 4 teenagers, and I have 4 parents between 73 and 82. I have one with dementia, one with mobility issues. Those 2 haven't planned at all.
Wow.
In fact, they're having money stolen out of their bank accounts right now. We need to go fix that. Okay, but my point is that I didn't know I'd be at the height of my earning career as I turn 50 here in a month, and be the dumbest person in the room in my own house. Now, bear with me. 4 teenagers that know it all, and 4 parents that won't take my advice, even though I have the credentials I have. That's the world I'm living in because of psychology and denial.
I completely understand. We were in a similar situation, but I know there's a lot of people out there listening that are in similar situations. We've talked about this a lot, where you could have 20 degrees, but mom will look at you and go, "Why in the world should I listen to you, Aaron? I diapered you." And that's the thought process. So something you mentioned before, and that's where I think someone like you can be so useful for the folks that are out there, bringing that expert into the conversation. What I've always noticed, people that are pushing 80 and above, they come from a time they will sit up and listen to that expert, where that expert could be you. They won't listen to you, but they'll listen to that person that comes in the room. I mean, that's wonderful advice, because what I'm hearing from this conversation, there are options and there are things that families can do. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what I'm also hearing, like a lot of what I talk about trying to help caregivers, there does have to be some planning. It's pretty hard to do quickly, even though, and maybe you can talk about this again, you've done some things to homes pretty quickly while someone is in a care situation, maybe in the hospital, skilled nursing, etc. I'll let you talk about it.
Yeah. So, Richard, my architecture firm tagline is listening, solving, creating architecture without the ego. I really believe that more brains, more better, right? Bring it all to the table. I have a book that tells me where to put a grab bar in a bathroom with a wheelchair and a bank. I need an occupational therapist, for example, to know if you are left side or right side strong. Did you have a stroke? Are we looking at Parkinson's? 70% of what I do in aging in place is equally termed universal design. It's just as good for a 4-year-old as it is for an 84-year-old. But the other third, that 30% that becomes custom to you, the more people we can get involved, the better. And that's why over at Forever Home, it's foreverhome-us.com, we're actually trying to build out that thriving in place dream team. I want to talk to your mortgage person. I want to talk to your elder law attorney. That, and the more we can bring the team together. Right now, tons of people are working in silos.
Sure.
I'll give you an example. We were paid actually to go do a TV show in Tokyo at the International Home Health Expo in 2014. Over there, I found out they're making a spoon that offsets your Parkinson's shaking, and you can eat cereal with milk with that spoon and not spill. Did you know that? No, of course not.
Nope.
And you also don't know which grab bar and which light and which color contrasts are working really, really well to make your house feel like a home while offering you subconscious safety information. We're not making homes into hospitals, okay? And thank God, let's talk about the media for one moment. Thank God you mentioned it, right? My father-in-law was born the day after World War II started. They're kind of set in their ways, and they have old ways of thinking.
Yeah.
Now, the advantage today is that we're working really hard. Do you remember the Golden Girls, Richard?
I do.
Okay. Do you know how old Blanche was?
Was Blanche the mom? Remind me.
Well, it really doesn't matter. The answer is she was 52, right?
Playing an older person. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, right. And they all had gray hair perms, and the women had to live together. Presumably, the men had all died. Okay. That's what you and I grew up watching. But guess what? Have you seen the Sex and the City reboot? Guess how old Carrie is?
She's in her,
52.
I was going to guess that. Go
52.
ahead.
Right. So think about the visual comparison of Blanche to Carrie Bradshaw.
Wow.
Right. And so we're working on it, but there's a lot of elder stigma that needs to be washed clean because, I mean, the retirement age was set in 1889 when our life expectancy was 47.
Wow.
That worked out pretty good for the government never paying out at 62 or 59 and a half, didn't it? Okay. But now a kid born today is told to plan for living to 120. But housing is being built the way it was being built with the GI Bill. There's the problem.
I totally agree with everything you said. I agree with the term silos. I've been saying forever, it truly does take a village as we age to get all these partners that you're talking about. And I hope some of these folks are listening to come together with some wonderful ideas like you have. Again, 109 million people that are 50 and older. Yeah, 50 years of age, this is not for you, but there's a very good chance this may be for mom and dad or older loved ones in your life. And that thinking ahead, but bringing together, like I was doing in these small little think tanks, bringing together all these bright brains to think about what we're going to need. And again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but we're there. We have to start thinking about that now. I'm 70 years old now. I'm smack in the middle of the boomer generation, and the oldest boomers in less than 3 years are going to be 80. We're already seeing that around the country, a lot of them didn't really take great care of themselves and are needing care and caregivers a lot sooner than their parents. Go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah. And let's talk to that 50 plus consumer, which is actually now me, right? I've been doing this discussion for 15 years, but my wife is the powerhouse of the consumer in the United States as the 50-year-old female because she's thinking about all these things. She's your ideal client, right? And she's thinking about the parents, and the parents are changing, and she's still dealing with the kids. And so if I can come to you and talk to you about multi-generational housing preparedness in a way that is either you only sell two things in life, Richard. You sell a dream come true or a pain avoided. And if you're unaware of that, please get out of sales. Okay. But if I can go to the 50-year-old female and talk about how do I help you with your dreams or how do I help you avoid your fears coming true, these are the things we're going to be talking about is changing your parents' home, preparing your home for them to move in, which is all a function of three corners, okay? Every architecture client that walks in my door, I say my world works in a triangle: scope, time, and money. Everybody only comes to me with scope, what they'd like to accomplish. But my advice, Richard, is so different by the time I have all three corners solved. Because if you came to me and said, I want 5,000 square feet and I have $5 million, then my answer on time is I'll be done tomorrow. But if you come to me and say, I have 5,000 square feet in mind and I have $5, my response is, cool, I hope you own a tool belt and that you measure time in decades with a sundial.
Wow. And
Right? You can't control all three. And so this is where it's about tough conversations, right? People like Louis Tenenbaum and Scott Fulton, who just created a book that just launched a day or two ago called Difficult Conversations in Aging. The think tanks are out there. They're doing the work. I shared the stage in Chicago in 2013 with quite arguably the father of aging in place, who did the first handicap remodel that I know of in 1989 Louis Tenenbaum, who currently has a House bill on the floor in Capitol Hill trying to get us tax advantages to the tune of $30,000 when you're investing in your home for longevity.
Wow. This is fantastic information. And as we're out there talking to the caregivers, one of the tips that I try to give almost in every episode, again, you don't want to be like my wife and myself, but everything Erin is talking about is such great information, and this idea that you're in your early 50s, your parents are maybe in their early 80s, you have started to see some change. You probably are denying it because you don't want to think of your parents in that vein. But as Erin is saying, now is the time to start thinking about if things get a little bit worse for them, where are they going to live? It's a question I always advise people to ask parents, in-laws, grandparents. Where do you guys want to live when you get older? And Erin can probably finish this. Most of them are going to say they want to live right here at home. Okay, well, let's figure out through that horrible word plan how we're going to do how we're going to accomplish that. In the last few minutes that we have, Erin, what other advice would you give those early 50s that may have parents that are 80 and beyond?
Yeah, for sure. So we're coming into the fall. We have two really unique opportunities where family gets together, Thanksgiving and Christmas. For the last 15 years, I've always recommended that you put on your sleuth hat, right? You become a little detective and you try to take a look at what's happening around the house that's different than the last time you were there, or how they're different if they're coming to your house. I want you to notice what's changed and think about the path that they may be on. The next step is start the conversation. Okay, nothing comfortable happens in a first conversation. The truth is usually 3 levels deep. We actually teach business owners. We're doing B2B coaching for those that want to own aging in place as a niche, because there needs to be 1,000 of me in the nation. So I'm going to go teach them what I've done. Okay, which has become synonymous with the term aging in place in the Tri-County area. What I want the folks who are 50 plus and headed to a holiday where they get to do an analysis with the folks is just take a look around. Do your own version of a mental home assessment, and then call me. Get a hold of me at foreverhome-us.com and tell me what you learned. Tell me what you learned. And for that house, here, let's do this, Richard. Let's end here. I want you to go home and do what's called the sock and ball test. I want you to go home and find a baseball or a tennis ball and put your hand around it. And then I want you to put that in a sock. And then I want you to go use your house. Does your microwave work? Well, I know one that does. Does the door from your garage to your house, does it open? Not if it's a knob and it's heavy and self-closing like it's supposed to be. I know a way to fix that. Right? All these products, I play quarterback and concierge. That's my job. I know them all. I'm disseminating the data and I'm bringing you the best available total product solution. So go take that test over the holidays. Let me know what's changed about your folks. Let's start this conversation. We can do home assessments nationwide. So let's talk about it.
That is fantastic information. The last half hour or so has been fantastic information. Please repeat the website again, Erin.
Yeah, Forever Home is one word. So foreverhome-us for United States.com.
Is there a phone number you want to give out? That's up to you.
Yeah, that's fine. Our office number here is 360-881-0282. That's the home of both ADM Architecture and Forever Home.
That is fantastic. So as we get ready to wrap up, folks, again, some fantastic information that I really encourage current caregivers, folks that may see themselves as future caregivers to listen to. And I know you hate that word plan, but as Aaron said, as you travel back to see mom and dad for Thanksgiving, Christmas, really open up your eyes and see what's happening. We find this business gets extremely busy come January, February, as conversations start happening based on what families see at the holidays. So, and again, folks, if if you have stories like Aaron, if you're an expert like Aaron and want to share some of that to help caregivers on our podcast, please reach out to me. I'm about to give you an email. I hope you folks have a pen. It's eldered2023@gmail.com. eldered2023@gmail.com. So I want to thank Aaron again. And until we talk again, folks, have yourself an awesome day.